Welcome everyone to Eye on Privacy. It is April 10th, 2025 to be specific. And my name is Jared Coseglia. I am the founder and CEO of TRU Staffing Partners. And for those of you who have not joined us before or are unfamiliar with the organization, we specialize in data privacy, talent representation. We place hundreds and hundreds of people in privacy jobs every single year. And every month we come together to give you, the privacy community, intelligence on what's happening in the job market, broadly, but specifically in our niche of data privacy and very much so AI governance. For those of you who are expecting to see my guest host, and every month we have a guest host, this month it was to be Susan Hinsey from Hinsey Law Firm, who's a legend in the industry and a pioneer in the data privacy legal space. Susan fell ill. She won't be with us today. I'm so sorry. But I promise you, who I have with me is just as entertaining and equally inspiring. Sarah Roberts. Sarah's been with the organization for nearly a decade. Sarah recently was made partner here at TRU Staffing Partners. Congratulations, Sarah. Sarah represents tons of our data privacy opportunities and professionals. And if you are looking for a job, you want someone like Sarah in your corner. If you're looking to hire, you really want Sarah in your corner. So Sarah's going to be joining us today, and we've got a ton of data to share. People always say, what are you going to talk about, Jared? So we're going to talk about some of these trends, maybe not all of these trends, but we're definitely going to talk about speed of hire today. We're definitely going to talk about contract staffing trends. We're definitely going to talk about offer acceptance likelihood. There's some pretty dramatic changes afoot. And people are always asking, hey, Jared, where do you guys get your data? So here's where we get our data. We are about to release our 2025 AI governance and data privacy jobs report, and we are super excited about it. It is a meaty document that will break down all of the kinds of stats we're talking about today. Some of them very specifically we'll visit today that are in this report, but it'll give you a real historical analysis of what's been happening in the data privacy job market, really from pre-GDPR to now, and hopefully give everybody a clear understanding of what to expect as job seeker and hiring manager as we move forward in 2025 and beyond. And look, whatever's static in that, you can visit us every month here. We're going to give you updated metrics on all that reporting. So let's talk about what maybe is on a lot of people's minds right now. Sarah, certainly on my mind. I looked at the market and it said one thing at 10 o'clock today, and it said a very different thing at 12:33 today. Wall Street is doing some pretty crazy things. So we've been fielding phone calls all week and late last week about what this means for hiring managers, for the job market, for job seekers. So we just thought it would be good to start today's webinar by addressing some of those and giving everybody some clear feedback on how it is affecting the job market. I'll be really honest. It's going to take 30 to 90 days for the impact of what's happening on Wall Street to really codify on Job Street. But there are a few things that happen almost instantaneously. And the first is a lot of people quickly shift their focus to contract and contract to hire staffing. And let me explain what I mean. I don't mean that they had a full-time job available and they changed the job from a full-time job to a contract hire. I mean, people that were not necessarily going to hire a contractor or maybe thought they would later in the year very quickly scrambled to open up headcount for a contract resource. And that's because they might fear they would lose that budget or lose that resource in Q2, later in Q2 or 3 or 4 of this year. So a lot of hiring managers rushed to the marketplace, somewhat in, I believe, reaction to what was happening on Wall Street, because there's too much of a rush. I mean, we got dozens of clients calling us in the last week looking for contractors. So that is what the immediate impulse reaction was, is let me use headcount budget, let me use budget while I've got it to augment my staff and help the program now. The other thing we saw is the people who did have FTE headcount hyper accelerated their process. A lot of our customers said, hey, we need to fill this job in the next 30 days. So go faster, or start now, right? We thought we would start in like mid Q2. We're starting now, and we want to finish at the end of April. So That's a reality. As a result, you're going to see the job market and decisions being made faster in the next 2 months. So expect April and May to be an accelerated time period. We're going to get into a little bit what the history of speed of hire has been on a per role basis in the privacy community, touch a little bit on it in AI governance, which is a slightly different beast in terms of timing and speed of hire. But it's going to accelerate in the next 2 months and then potentially maybe slow down in the summer or potentially accelerate even further. It's hard to say what's going to happen when things change so quickly on Wall Street. We've never seen anything like this ever. The other thing that's important for hiring managers to understand is new job seekers entered the market almost instantaneously. A lot of them coming out of corporate America and a lot of them taking a look at how their total compensation package is structured and looking at their stock portfolio and what it looked like in January and looking at what it looked like at the end of last week and maybe the end of today and saying to themselves, my total compensation opportunity is no longer what it was. It's significantly lower. And as a result, they're entering the job market knowing that it might not, happen instantaneously that they get work, but they are going to be looking for work as a result of this dip in stock price. That then moves cash to become the emphasis for job seekers. And look, we said it last month for the first time, I think in almost a year plus, the number one motivator for job seekers in privacy shifted from being burnt out and looking for a higher quality of life to pay me more money. I need to be better compensated for my skill set and for my experience and for the amount of time I'm putting in on the job. And I no longer am going to focus on finding a place where I don't have to put in so much time, but rather focus on a place that will pay me for the time that I'm putting in and the good work that I'm doing. So this is what the kind of knee-jerk shock reaction from job seekers and hiring managers has been in the last 90 hours of business hours. And it seems like a lot, and it probably is. And we'll see a lot of other sort of shifts happening as things continue to change at a macro level in the economy. Sarah, anything stand out to here for you as like what we need to keep our eye on more so than the other points for the future?
I think the speed of hire is super important to keep your eye on. And assuming that the people that you're talking to are also talking to other organizations, there have become an increase in these opportunities, like Jared mentioned, especially on the contract side. And if you're interviewing a contractor, I would assume they're interviewing elsewhere, and those interviews are being truncated to maybe one or two conversations, and that can last only like a week or two. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but keep that in mind as you're talking to these people.
100%. And not only that, but the likelihood of you getting a yes if you're an employer, if you're the first offer a job seeker receives, is something that we track.
Yeah.
And you're going to see some pretty staggering statistics on how better your odds are of getting a yes if they're the first offer that they receive as a job seeker. Let's talk quickly about the other trends. And we're now at the end of the first quarter, so we can talk a little bit about the trends we're seeing into the second quarter, one of which is we're starting to see some CPO and executive level jobs in privacy emerge for the first time, really in almost a year, maybe two. And so that's exciting. And some of them are at large companies, and some of them are regional leadership roles at very large companies. Others are at startups. So it's really kind of all over the board what we're seeing. The other major trend that we're seeing happen right now is that contract and contract to hire is surging. And I mean, it started surging in March, but the first week of April was, I'll be honest, it was overwhelming how many people all of a sudden very quickly started to seek contract talent. And their needs are quite specific and quite niche, which is sort of another trend, right? We're starting to see people look less for privacy generalists as contractors and more for privacy specialists that have very targeted tasks, DPIAs, PIAs. This person is ROPA all day long. This is our ROPA overflow person. We need somebody that's going to restructure our DSAR program. I need an attorney who understands these regulatory environments and can help us update all of our contracts and policies related to them. The other thing we're seeing is speed, as Sarah said. So we're at 6 business days for contract jobs that we're filling. So from the time a customer receives a resume to the time a verbal offer is accepted is right now an average of 6 days, which means if you're not moving on somebody in 2 weeks from the time you see the resume, they're probably going to go off the market to somebody else. That's generally what we've seen happen. 1 of every 4 new jobs in privacy has had an AI governance job requirement in it. So this is a new thing we've been looking at and tracking for the last quarter. And we can now say that about 1 in 4 is going to have some element of AI governance. That element is wildly different from company to company. And sometimes that element is just a intellectual curiosity and basic understanding. We are not seeing people require a certification of some sort to qualify for a job, but certainly those kind of certifications often meet the requirement that's asked of an intellectual curiosity or a basic understanding of AI governance rules and principles or frameworks surrounding AI governance. We're now up from 75 to 80% of TRU's data privacy candidate portfolio that we reach out to is open to new opportunities. So that essentially means if we get a new search and we contact 20 people, we're going to get 16 of those people that say, yes, I'm interested in that opportunity. So that's a pretty high number. It's a very high number. I can tell you in some of our other verticals, that number is not that high. That means people are looking and people are ready to make moves. It's a hungry job market from a job seeker perspective. And we are seeing more corporate counsel. I really had teed this up for Susan, but we are seeing more people in the corporate side move over to the am law and the law firm side, not just am law, right? Firms of all sizes. And that is a trend. And part of that, I think, is because there is a shortage of senior level opportunity, particularly for counsel in the corporate side, although we're seeing that change. I will say this, though, we're tracking a lot more jobs being posted than we are being filled and accepted. So it is also clear that if you're using a third-party agency like my organization, you're probably going to fill your job a whole lot faster than doing it on your own, just based on the timeline we're watching certain organizations take to successfully fill these positions. Having weeks and weeks go by in between touch points is probably going to lead to you losing your first wave of candidates and require a constant pipeline of new job seekers put into the mix. And we're going to show you those exact timelines to sort of measure your expectations to in terms of how long until I'm going to lose candidates I'm actively interviewing. Sarah, anything that stands out here to you?
One of the things I wanted to mention when you were talking about less generalists on the contract side, I find that we're seeing that at the CPO level too. These CPO positions, it's less about just the leadership aspect of your role and more about, okay, now that, 6 years ago, we were filling these jobs, multiple a month. And now that they're fewer and far between, as Jared mentioned in the beginning, they're starting to come back. But now it's very specific. We're looking for somebody that has ad tech experience and digital services as it relates to data privacy and compliance. And you can have the right level and the right leadership type, but people are being a lot more specific on the skill set based on industry specifics, and it's a bit harder. And we're seeing less people jump from an industry that doesn't really have as much relevant crossover or regional framework and stuff as another.
It is. What's also interesting about that, though, is that it's sort of democratizing salaries regardless of industry, as people are sort of out there shuffling around, looking for talent and measuring remote versus in office and all these things that kind of dictate what somebody's compensated. But you're right. I mean, people want, and it's not just uh, skill set. It
Right.
could be, I want people that have had significant startup experience.
That's
I
right.
want a CPO that has taken a company through an IPO. I want a CPO who understands how to build an AI governance program and is in the beginning, like workings of developing that in their current position. I think it's more than just industry vertical, but you're right. The nuance is not limited to the mid-market.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about contract versus direct hire, which is obviously the biggest trend happening right now in data privacy. You could see here the month-over-month trends and just how dramatically the market shifted to contract and contract to hire in the fourth quarter. A lot of that is a couple of things, one of which is people just do less full-time hiring in data privacy in the fourth quarter, but also there are a lot of people spending budget at the end of the year to augment or fractionally augment their programs. We also saw a good uptick in AI governance contract staffing in the fourth quarter of this year for the first time and maybe ever. And also, I think a lot of people responded to the outcomes of the US election when they occurred as a signal of deregulation, a signal of increased litigation, a potential risk to getting the budget that they want or need in compliance if privacy is viewed in their organization as such, which it is in a lot of organizations. And as a result, a lot of the headcount shifted over to contract or contract to hire. So the shift of FTE being shelved and replaced with contract to hire was definitely happening in the fourth quarter of last year. And we sort of saw that trend stop. And more of this surge now is in result to spend it while I got it. While we're paused, though, I'll just say we could take questions. So if
Yeah,
you've
we do
got
have.
questions, put them in the Q&A. Don't put them in the chat. put them in the Q&A, and we will get to questions. Sarah, do we have any questions we want to pause for now, or we'll come back to that in a second?
Yeah, this question is kind of springboarding off of what we mentioned about like industry and generalists and things like that. But the question is that somebody is seeing a lot of privacy rules being combined with like having privacy and cyber experience, or maybe being privacy leaning but having a cyber focus. And you mentioned, AI governance coming into play with privacy, but is that something you're seeing in regards to cyber and compliance as well, or more just AI governance?
Yeah, so let's separate the two, right? I think when it comes to AI governance and data privacy, we're definitely seeing overlap. So much so that if you look at our data privacy and AI governance report, you'll see we're tracking just how many people on LinkedIn are self-identifying as having skills in both AI governance and data privacy. And at certain overlaps, it's north of 1.7 million claiming they have those skills. Now, when you take the privacy out of it and you just look at people that are claiming to have AI governance skills, it's like, you know, 1/10 the pool, maybe less. It's significantly less. So clearly the AI governance talent pool is derivative of privacy, or at least it started that way because of the corpus of talent that's self-identifying. At least that's what our research tells us. And that's what anecdotally, our experience, I would say, tells us in the marketplace too, sir. I mean, we talk to CPOs, hundreds and hundreds of them from the Fortune 1000 and beyond every year. And I can tell you that most CPOs in data privacy are spending between 25 and 50% on average time doing AI governance, not data privacy. So that makes sense. Now, I'll be really honest. I don't know that I'm seeing as much of an overlap in these other disciplines as it relates to data privacy jobs. The data privacy jobs we're seeing expect someone to do data privacy. They've got other people or need other people to do certain aspects of cybersecurity. Now, where I think that there might be an exception to that rule broadly is probably at the lawyer level, at the counsel level, and potentially in-house at a law firm level. Then you're going to see a lot more of that overlap, and not just with AI governance and privacy, but with cybersecurity and AI technology. Generally speaking, you might see that overlap both for how they do it at their firm, how they service their customers, or how they're implementing it in their practice groups. But in the Fortune 2000, most of them have pretty mature privacy programs and pretty mature cybersecurity programs. And yeah, there's collaboration, there's overlap in certain areas, but I wouldn't say that there's a trend for seeking talent who is dual disciplined, and that having that dual discipline will pay you more money or make you more competitive for more jobs. I wouldn't say that that's true. No.
What about certifications? Do you think that certifications are still really necessary or hold value in the market?
Well, of course, certifications are always valuable because it's a seal of approval that gives an employer confidence in your credibility. So they're always going to give anyone that has one a leg up. We do have some customers that come to us and say they have to have their this, whether it's a CIPP US, because they're a lawyer and they got to have it. And we're not hiring or going to interview anybody that doesn't have one. So don't even send them if they don't have it. That's a rarity. It does happen, but it's a rarity. I would say most of the time it's preferred. And when a hiring manager says that a certification is preferred, the way a job seeker should read that is having the certification gives me an advantage and puts me at the top of the pile. And I think that's true.
Yeah, agreed.
So here we're going to look at privacy from a 7-year perspective, and this really shows you the exacerbation of adoption. We're looking at adoption that I think is going to exceed the adoption of contract utilization that we saw during both GDPR and the Great Resignation and the COVID dip, right? So these peaks you're seeing in 2020, that peak at 60%, that's COVID, right? Q2 through Q1 of 2023, contract, 60% of the marketplace. The difference between now and then, right? And the other peak you'll see here is sort of the beginning of that utilization in 17 and 18 leading up to GDPR and through CCPA. What's making now very different and why year to date is at 86% is because the talent is available. You can get these people now, and you can get them at reasonable pricing. And you can often get similar talent that you would find at an outside counsel or at a Big Four consulting firm as a contractor for a significantly lower price, which means you can get more hours from them and more utilization in a shorter amount of time. and caliber matters, right? And as the market has become more saturated with contract resources because of the lack of full-time available resources for 2 years now in terms of volume, right? 2022, almost 45,000 jobs. 2023, less than 20,000. 2024, less than 18,000. That's a big difference in available opportunities for people to move around in order to accelerate earning potential and move the market up financially, which is exactly what happened during both GDPR and after COVID, the Great Resignation, where you can see in 21 and 22, full-time hiring far exceeded contract because people didn't want to take a risk of, I hire a contractor, they might leave me quickly. I better secure talent in a full-time capacity because a third to two-thirds of my staff left because they don't want to come back to an office, right? All of that was going on then. The Great Resignation, 21 and 22, very different marketplace now. Everybody who runs a privacy program should be considering using contract talent to augment their program in a variety of different ways. But all job seekers should consider contract employment as a potentially very viable pathway, potentially a more lucrative, more interesting, certainly potentially a more diverse journey through the next several years as the privacy industry sort of reinvents itself with an incorporation or not incorporation of governance while we wait to see what kind of laws get passed out there, which I think are going to be scarce in the next few years. Sarah, I see you got questions or
Yeah.
perspective. Lay it on me.
So with the way that everything has, the way that the privacy market has changed, what would you say you're seeing in relation to entry level jobs versus, for lack of a more eloquent term, somebody needing to be plug and play in a lot of these scenarios, whether they're an attorney or privacy program
Yeah,
manager?
I mean, I don't want to be discouraging, but I'll say the same thing I would say to somebody looking to break into any industry right now as an entry level professional, whether they're a lawyer or a waiter or an actor. It's all you know. It's all you know. It is not an entry level marketplace right now. It's a trickling executive marketplace and a fully loaded mid-market job marketplace, which means you got to have some experience. And it is a little bit of a catch-22, how you're going to go from 0 to 2 years of experience where you can have a bell curve of both earning opportunity and volume of job opportunity available to you based on that experience. That may mean reinventing yourself in your current employer. But I can tell you right now, we don't have any entry-level jobs open in the company right now. Nobody's coming to us saying, show me somebody with no experience that I can pay top dollar for in a down economy where the NASDAQ is up and down 2,000 points every other day.
And we are seeing opportunities internationally, but especially in the data privacy space, people want people in the jurisdictions and where the company is located, right? So if you're an attorney internationally, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get a remote position for, a US based role than if you're based in the US and you're
I
trying
mean,
to.
look, guys, we don't know where we're headed culturally speaking as it relates to privacy and as it relates to trade. But I would say, generally speaking, right now, we're moving towards more insulated, more nationalistic choices and behaviors as it relates to how countries spend money. Um, I'm not proud of it, but we've had a few Canadian companies say that they don't want to work with us anymore. I get it. I get it. It doesn't make me happy. It wasn't my decision, but this is the burden that countries will bear based on the decisions that their leaders make, and it will affect business. Yes.
Do you find that cyber attorneys or people that have a cyber counsel background are, well equipped to move into privacy or,
But why would they? I mean, honestly, like I guess that's the question. If it's because of intellectual curiosity and they have a passion for it, fantastic. I had a passion for being an actor. I thought I'd be on Broadway until I graduated school and two planes hit two towers in downtown Manhattan. No one wanted to go to the theater for 5 years, and I stumbled into this profession. Thank goodness, and love it. But let's not force it. We don't need an oversaturated marketplace of cybersecurity lawyers moving into data privacy. There's plenty of jobs out there for cybersecurity lawyers. I think being dual disciplined will make you more valuable, more interesting, more collaborative within your own organization. The pursuit of knowledge is always positive, but if you're looking for that to have an immediate outcome that will lead to greater wealth, prosperity, or mobility in this job market, that's probably not the path, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Quickly, let's go over the rest of this data because I know we're going to run out of time, and I'll stay after for a few minutes. I know Sarah will too to answer any questions that weren't answered. Here you can see the length of contractor assignment. So the importance of this data is to show you just how long assignments tend to last and just how long employers tend to wait until they convert one of these resources from contract into full hire. So what's an amazing thing is, even if you go back like years, into COVID years, the average amount of days before most employers convert someone is always less than the average amount of days before somebody quits and takes another job. So employers and employees, whether they're aware of it or not, sort of understand the covenant, and that covenant is a moving target. And that moving target in 2022 was 152 days. That was about the length of an assignment. If you didn't convert a contractor in the first, 2 quarters, you probably were going to lose them. That moved up a little bit in 2023. You can see just how much longer it got in 2024. That number stayed about the same. I think now it's at around 260, so it's a little bit longer. But the conversion timeline has gotten shorter too. I think that's around 215, 214, something like that. So the amount of time, if you're a hiring manager, right now, if you've got a contractor on payroll and you're considering converting them and they're past 200 days, you should seriously think about converting them or having a conversation about deliberately extending their contract so that you don't risk attrition. And we're going to have a lot more data specifically about this in the jobs report. 80% of our customers are using both contract and direct hire. You could see how much higher that's up from last month, which was at 65. I mean, it's been crazy, the contract demand in the last few weeks. 90% of our contractors are finishing their assignments. Only 3% are taking positions. You can see here, yeah, the average day is now at 260. Moving on to the next set of data, I want to make sure everybody gets this because we've been promising it. Here's the speed of hire data. You could see it based on role. You could see that executive has picked up a lot of tempo. People who are waiting to make moves on hiring decisions in Q4 have started making them in Q1. You could see at the program manager director, it's actually gotten a little longer. People have been holding their hands, sitting on their hands with those decisions. In that mid-market, you'll also see it's gotten a lot longer for privacy engineers. Not a lot of opportunity out in the marketplace for privacy engineers right now, relative to the amount of opportunity for counsel, for managers, and directors, et cetera. Privacy analysts has gotten a little longer, but as those get longer, what gets shorter, Sarah? Contracting,
Right.
right?
Sorry. Yes. As the for full time, yes, but the
Yeah, but keep in
contracting
mind,
stuff.
like contracting, this pink line here, that's contracting at every level. So that's CPO as a service,
Right.
that's fractional CPOs, that's fractional managing directing consultants, AI governance consultants, high-end consultants, high-end lawyers, and it's people managing day-to-day DPIAs or one trusted customization. It's everybody clumped together, but that average is still 6 days. So those
And
are
that's
made very fast.
and I think that's also a result of less generalists and more specialists. You either have the skill set and they
Yep.
like you for it, or you don't, so you can truncate the interview
A
process.
great point. That is definitely accelerating people's ability to make quick decisions because they're not sort of looking for things and wondering if this person's right. And they're looking for something very specific, and they know it when they see it. And they also know if they like someone when they meet them
Right.
pretty
Right.
quickly. All right, quickly we'll go through offer acceptance likelihood. This is really important for everybody to ingest, right? Take a look at where things were at the peak of the Great Resignation. You only had a 45% likelihood someone was going to say yes if you were the first offer they received. You could see how that's changed over the last 2 years. We believe the job recession, peaked last quarter. I mean, we're at 90%. That's crazy. We've never seen it that high. So essentially, if you're the first offer that a job seeker gets, they're going to take it right now if they're in data privacy. People aren't weighing a lot of other options. And if they are, they're still choosing that first offer most of the time. So I implore hiring managers to be deliberate. Most of them are, as you can see by our trends at the beginning of this call, in being faster with speed of hire. But job seekers should anticipate that. And I'll tell you, I've had a couple of people that went on spring break and lost contract jobs because they weren't available that week to take calls. And they're like, I'm not taking calls while I'm on spring break. And then they lost the job opportunity. I'm not saying people should take calls on their vacation, but I am saying that things are moving fast, so you have to be prepared. You might lose a job if you're not available for a week's time at the tempo the market is moving at right now.
Jared, why is contracting so popular? Is it because it's just safer with, a bumpy economy and somebody doesn't have to,
There are
or
a
like,
couple of reasons. I mean, the first of just, well, they're not getting headcount budget. I mean, the number one reason why people come to us and say, I need a contractor, is because they didn't get full-time headcount budget. And everybody's run lean for 2 years. There's been half the amount of jobs available, probably 3/4 of the amount of the actual transacted job changes compared to 21 and 22. So people are running lean right now and they're hurting and they need help. And if they can get fractional help for either 3 months full time or for 6 months fractionally or for 2 weeks while someone's out on a long leave to just help redirect requests that come into their, centralized system, it can be any of these things that people are looking for. So people are going to get headcount approval for a contractor and budget for contractor, or be able to reallocate budget to a contractor. Let me take some of my outside counsel spend and use it to hire a contractor. My outside counsel spend $700 an hour. Maybe I could get 5 hours of a contractor for that 1 hour with an attorney and reconfigure some of my spend so that I can get other things done that are a priority in the program. Same thing with, big four consulting firm spend. You can get a lot of utilization out of a contractor versus a $1,500 an hour managing director to give you some wisdom that you may not need for the next 3 months. You may need execution. So it's easier to reconfigure budgets in that way. Also, when stocks drop, companies want people to hire contractors because it doesn't affect the pricing of their bottom line the same way perpetual full-time headcount does when they come to analyze their quarterly earnings report. So that's another reason why contract has surged for the last 2 years, because everybody's been very mindful of stock prices. Hopefully that's a good answer.
Well, and that kind of segues into this next question, but in places like DC or other federal, like heavy federal markets, are you seeing any impacts on non-federal council or like positions, or is it mostly impacted just on the federal employees?
Um, we're seeing layoffs. I'm not sure what the question is, but I'll answer it this way. We're seeing layoffs in corporate America as much as we are in the federal government. We are seeing people move from the federal government into the private sector, so that's good news. The other good news is, generally speaking, most of the people that are in the public sector are priced lower from a compensation standpoint than what a lot of jobs in privacy will offer in the private sector. So it's opportunistic for everybody there. It can be a win-win for everybody, but not everybody has the skill set that's worked on the government side to immediately acclimate into what's happening in corporate America. I would say federal workers with strong HIPAA should look to healthcare companies. That will give you advantage there, right? And looking at other regulatory environments, and kind of looking to those areas of the private sector where you might have sat in the public sector is a smart way to go about your job search. All right, we are at the hour. Very quickly, here is the compensation benchmarks. The two big takeaways here are one, these remain the same. So they haven't really changed in 16 months. Now, these are the bands, right? Which means we're seeing people at the top and we're seeing people at the bottom and we're seeing people all over the middle. But here's what's interesting. Throughout the course of Q1, most of the placements we're seeing transact are almost at the ceiling of this range, which means that the corpus of talent that's available that people will be able to get at these price points is beginning to diminish. So we anticipate that these segments that you see sort of dotted lined here in green, go ahead, MT, these are going to be the areas where salaries are going to go up in the next quarter. We expect all these ranges to slowly creep up in Q2 because we're just running out of people that will take salaries that are anywhere other than pretty much at the top of these ranges. And that speaks to also the caliber of talent that hiring managers want, right? The hiring managers are coming to us with more specific needs and sometimes higher caliber needs, which again sort of also speaks to the challenges of breaking in at an entry level. And that's also moving the needle of where they need to spend to acquire talent that meets their demands. Very quickly, MT, let's just show everybody the AI governance data so that they can have it in this recording. I believe that's what's next. This is based on advertised salaries. You can see that the median here is much closer to the minimum than the maximum. And you'll see in our jobs report, it's a nice segue into that, which is coming out next week, just how much lower the mean is in AI governance positions versus traditional privacy positions when you begin to align years of experience and skill set requirements. So we've got a long way to go before AI governance separates from privacy as a discipline that commands equally compelling salaries. And that's going to be a challenge for that marketplace when all the talent comes from AI, for AI governance comes from privacy, who are used to making more money than what companies seem to be willing to pay for AI governance positions. But we'll see how that changes. Certainly our jobs report is going to tell you how we think it changes. That'll be out next week. Sarah, some final thoughts. We've got the amazing Heather Wood is going to join us. If you haven't seen Heather speak or don't know her, she's amazing. So please join us next month where Heather will join me. Sarah, any final thoughts or, everybody's going to GPS. If you're going to GPS, go see Rachel, go see Byron. Byron Johnson joins us at TRU from the IAPP. He'll be at GPS with our other partner, Rachel, who really helped build our entire privacy group here. So if you don't know Rachel and Byron, please meet them at GPS. And Sarah, now please take the final thought. What's your final thought or any last questions we have before we close this out?
People seem to be really excited about the insights and the stats and things like that. So they wanted to make sure they had access to some of this information. So all of us have access to this information. Feel free to connect with us. And we're happy to, share the information we have.
Yeah, it'll be posted in, in the next 24 hours on our website. You can visit trustaffingpartners.com. You can watch the video, you can download the video. Also, this deck, if you just want the slides and the data, we have that available for everyone. Just, give us a little bit of time to make all that happen from a logistics standpoint, but our amazing marketing team always does it very quickly. And if you want to hear from me or Sarah personally, if you reach out to us and connect with us on LinkedIn, everyone will get a response, I assure you. And if you're looking for talent representation, come talk to us. We got a lot of jobs open right now, full-time and contract. It's not one or the other, but you'll probably hear about both from us so that you can be educated about what's available when you're represented by TRU. And if you're hiring, don't hesitate. I mean, you can probably see if you're trying to staff jobs without an organization like ours, how much faster things are going to happen under our care. And we really do care. And we're really excited to release this report. And we really want everyone's feedback, good, bad, and ugly. It has got some strong perspectives and some strong data and some strong guidance for how we can all have a healthier, wealthier, and more productive future as data privacy and AI governance professionals. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.